Hello again. Today's coffee conversation is a tender one and a hope-filled one. I'm joined by Amy and Brian, a couple whose story speaks of redemption, rest, and surprising ways which God weaves beauty from seasons of hiddenness, healing, and surrender. Their journey didn't become with striving or searching, but with deep personal encounters with Jesus, long seasons of preparation, and a spirit-led connection that unfolded in its own time. Together, we talk honestly about their backstories, restoration, marriage through a new creation lens, and the quiet faith it takes to trust God with what seems impossible. If you've ever felt disqualified by your past, tired of trying or simply to get it right, or simply longing for hope, this conversation is with you. So grab your coffee, settle in, and join us. Amy and Brian, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much for saying yes to my invitation. It is such an honor to have you here. And I think what is really important to kind of put on the table right from the start is when I invited you, I was like, we need to speak about marriage. And
Yeah.
so that is, anybody who doesn't know, this is what we're going to talk about today. So I would love to kind of step straight into that and say, hey, tell me a little bit of who you are, where you are, what's happening right now in your lives. You got married quite recently. Just give me a little bit of a backstory of where are the two of you right now?
Oh, wow. Well, where are we right now? We're actually in California. So we're getting a little taste of whole new way of doing life. So, a little backstory. You want backstory individually? You want backstory of the marriage? Where do we start?
I think I would love to hear, I think, both sides of the story, because I think both of you have a little bit of history. I know that Brian has been on his own for a long time, kind of felt hidden for a long time. You have a story of your own. So maybe let's do the two stories and then how it all came together. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So you
So,
go ahead.
okay. So Brian and I have been married just since June 14th of this year. So this is 2025. We've been married 6 months. And little backstory on that. I had been married for 33 years prior to that, this wedlock, this joining, this union. Uh, been on my own I've been divorced now for 2 years. You know, living in Houston, Texas area, two adult kids, going to church, doing all the things, really, everything about my life. I thought I would always be married. I think doesn't everybody get into marriage assuming that we're going to be married forever? But just due to circumstances that are not necessary for this part of the conversation, for this particular conversation, we chose to go our own ways with the goal and the plan that we would still be a loving family that looked different to everybody else looking in from the outside looking in. And, still stay in connection, both love the Lord, love our growth and our walk in our relationships. But we didn't have that solid background and understanding so much of who we are in Christ that we were able to navigate, all of the ups and downs and the different things. And like I say, it's not that part's not really important. But I had been on my own then for less than 2 years when I met Brian. But I had a plan in my mind, Mart-Marie, that I was not going to be dating. I had no intention of getting in any relationship for at least a couple of years. I was like, it is me and the Trinity. We're in that perichoresis dance. We are in that place of growing, connecting, Amy finding Amy, maybe for the first time in her life. Then I met this amazing man, and we can get into that part of it later, but totally blindsided, outside of my plan of what I thought my life needed to look like. And interestingly enough, God said otherwise. But, sometimes you have these constructs and ideas of what it should be, or like, this is a redo, and now I need to do A, B, and C, and all the way to Z before I'm ready, healed, open for that kind of a thing. And so we're walking that out completely different than what I thought was going to be.
and very raw.
Yeah, very raw. And so that just gives you a little bit of background on how I was before we entered into this whole new dance.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I may go a little bit deeper. Um, so I was married for 23 years. Married basically not out of high school. I joined the military, but married out of the military, and was not a good man. I was basically um, pretty pretty early in the marriage was straying, usually at work. So I was not a good man at all. Anyway, I entered the salvific experience, if you will, probably 9 years into my marriage, at a United Pentecostal church. And, we had gone to church, but really encountering Jesus was at that church, baptized in the Holy Spirit, and just was all in. Men's meetings on Saturday night before service, it was 9 to midnight. I was there from 9 to midnight under the front pew, just weeping, interceding, travail, and had encounters, and was blessed by the pastor of that church, who was a pretty strong man of God in the United Pentecostal Church, kind of mentored me and led me into fasting, gave me a great book, and Abba just blessed me. And that was a wonderful vehicle for me at the time, just to really experience intimacy and communion. So I was all in, ordained. I taught breathed oneness, Jesus only doctrine, which is what I was taught. And then through a series of situations, job moves, different things, left that denomination, and Abba whispered to me, "Now I'm going to teach you what I want you to preach." So went through non-denominational, charismatica, all the things, still in the marriage. And, so when we first when my infidelities came out, or I don't know how we want to talk about it, but we were going to counseling and had an accountability, and I was like, well, Jesus forgave me, so why do I need to re-earn trust and different things? And so I didn't do the work. I didn't hold accountability with the man of the counselors and different things. So my former spouse became very bitter. And then after my encounters, I was all in, so I am going to do the work. I'm fidgeting, in case you didn't notice. My wife is helping me.
Yes, I noticed.
And, but she had kind of, that root of bitterness had grown up. So as we continued counseling and things, we got to the point where, it just, there was wasn't any good. So ended up separating, eventually divorcing. But during that transition, I came across Damon Thompson around 2007, 2006, and just blew me away. The first message I heard from him was about intimacy and communion. That was his one thing, walking with Abba in the cool of the day, holding hands like he did with Adam. And that's been, and still continues to be, really just set my, so it's not a striving thing. It may have began that way, but that's my walk now. Before that time, I really didn't even know Abba. It was Jesus, and Jesus was God. Jesus was Holy Spirit. Jesus was Jesus. But through the deconstruction, so I was deconstructing before it was sexy, before people seemed to talk about it. But yeah, through Damon's teaching, just kind of hanging out with him and different things, I came to understand about Yahweh, Father God, and how there were really a three tripart being, because the Pentecost was oneness only. There was no Trinity per se. And as I began to understand Yahweh and then understood him as Father, things really changed. I had always been intimate with Holy Spirit because that's where the power came from. That's where the tongues came from. That's where the healings came from. I've always been a literal person in the Bible. So if he says, hey, you should be able to relocate. All right, by golly, Philip, tell me, help me out. I'm ready to go. Or speak a word or, anoint them with oil and the prayer of the faith will heal the sick. I mean, that was me. I believed it. But during COVID, I was an essential worker. Man, I'm jumping around so much. I apologize. But anyway, we had separated and divorced 2011, 2013. But during COVID, I was driving home and Damon was going through his health crisis and he was talking about our beloved identity and I believed it. He taught me in scripture. I read it. I was like, heck yeah, let's go. But I tried to verbalize I am his beloved and I couldn't, Mart-Marie. It took me 3 tries to literally be able to vocalize it. But when that happened, that's when he became Abba to me. He's my beloved father, and I am his favorite beloved son. And Yeshua is my beloved brother, and Holy Spirit is the helper. And it's just been a whole thing. So that teaching opened up a willingness to receive, Chris Blackaby, January of last year. And just devoured all his things. And it's just been interesting. But December of 2022, I left the marketplace. I had been, relatively successful mid manager, very decent income, but I had no income, no savings, no plan. And just simply at the whisper of Abba, leaning on his provision. And it was 30 months, 24 for sure, of isolation, not leaving the house for months at a time. Um, yeah, and just peace and rest during that time in spite of everything. January of last year is kind of when I started coming out and involved in some online groups, first real community. And one of those was the Mirror Word Bible study. And I think I joined that in February, I guess.
This would have been of 24.
Yeah, 24. And a couple months later, Amy and I were in our first break. Well, so do we want to break and then kind of come back together and then talk about us coming together, or
Well,
where do we want to
yeah,
go? I
let's.
kind of monopolized the conversation there for a
No,
little
no,
while.
no, that's great. I think what I want to ask, if you don't mind, is I think something of my heart resonates so deeply with that season of isolation. There was, for me in COVID as well, I just recognize, as you say, it a season of months, not just being in that space, just me and God and nothing else. If you look back on that time, what was the biggest thing that shifted for you as a human being, as understanding who God is for you in that time of isolation and your identity in Him?
I think it would probably be just absolute trust. No matter what things came my way, whether it was a letter saying, hey, you lost your phone number because you didn't pay your bill that you've had for 30 years. I was like, okay, sure, the anxiety hit, but then it's like, nope, I have a good father. He's pure light. There I go, moving the table again. And all of these things, including this, he will use for my good. So for me, it's that absolute trust and rest and peace that trust engenders. So that was the deal. Before that, so during COVID, I was essential industry. So I was working every day, leading people, taking care of a manufacturing plant, that sort of thing, making things happen. But in 22, when I left all of that, yeah, it just solidified that, and really it refined it. So I had a measure of trust. He had given me a vision, and I just had the faith that he was going to give me this vision for a decade. but then it just really solidified. There's no doubts, even in this midst of contradiction. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still times where the anxiety will come up and the old me will flare, but the timing to go back to peace and rest, or even stay in peace and rest in the midst of that, is still there. So I would say that just the absolute trust, which, anchored my peace and rest.
Mm. Okay, well, I met the two of you in April, May
April.
2025. Yeah, in
April.
San
Yep.
Diego, exactly there where you are now. Um, that point, you guys were either already engaged or getting engaged really soon. But let's step a little bit back. Let's go back to where the story started with the two of you.
A couple of things on that. So Brian mentioned that he was in this place of isolation. So we're looking at 22 to 24. And then he mentioned the mirror word. So Francois and Lydia DeToy, Francois being the translator, if you will, or of that particular paraphrase of the Bible that he's been working on. And so there's a group, both a UK group and a US group, that meets once a week online. Anybody can join. They do a Bible study going over a chapter, and then have a small breakout rooms. People from all over the world that just come in to, just really find that face-to-face experience of Christ in them and who they are. Brian, I had been part of that group for a while. Brian had joined, as he mentioned, I think January or something of 24. I had been in there since sometime in 22. And so during his isolation, as he's kind of coming out of that, joining groups, I'm in my own type of isolation, literally like very different than what Brian's look like. But it's how Holy Spirit's doing all of this and you know what, throughout the entire globe, right?
Yes.
There's people, like, we are waking up to the reality of our oneness, and we see the interconnectedness that we have with one another. And I'm in my own. I'm in an area, a very well-to-do suburb of Houston, Texas, where I've been a very active member of the community through philanthropic stuff, church things, work things, founder of a nonprofit, doing a lot of very active things. But before my separation, before the divorce, all of those things slowly being pulled back, right? Just being pulled back from all of this. Be out there, be in front of everything, be busy in the name of God, right? In the name of Jesus, be active and busy, and not dealing with the things going on inside of what's happening in the heart. I'm being pulled back. I'm sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment most of the time, reading, walking, just in meditative state, reading the Bible, laying splayed out on my floor, doing all of these things that are so counter to my typical way of thinking that I'm okay, and him, just undoing us and realizing like what we need and what we don't need, and introducing himself in this intimacy. So we're both in that, not knowing one another, him in a small town in Georgia, me in a big city in Texas, and we come together on this group. And we're just we end up in a breakout group together, and we start talking about different people, like maybe like Nancy Cohen, Justin Paul Abraham, Chris Blackaby, Mike Parsons, some of these names that, both of us had, Abba leading us into these deeper realizations and teachings that were like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. When you hear another teacher, another person talk about it. And it didn't really fit this conversation of maybe 5 other people in the group. So I just said, by the way, on a side note, if anybody wants to keep this conversation going on some of the people you're learning from, I'd love to connect. So Brian was like, yeah, on the side chat, we're talking, him and I and another gal that we had met, have since met. both of us on separate occasions. And, we ended up just maybe a week or so later exchanging and, hey, let's chat on Messenger. And I would love to hear what you're learning, who you're learning from, blah, blah, blah. And then so that started a friendship that was literally the only place in my heart that I had capacity for, because I said it was like me and the Trinity. That is the intimacy that I wanted and I desperately needed. And he was doing the same in his own way in Georgia. But he came in with this love. He had been further along. Brian had been divorced at this point 12 years. I had been at that point, less than a year. And just like that brother, like he was like my brother. We got on a phone call one time and literally we talked for 2 hours the first time we talked. And I'm like, dude, you are like a brother from another mother. Like, you just get me, I get you. And it felt so good and safe. And I'm like, he's far away. So there's nothing, like it didn't even occur to me. This was not a romantic interest in any way, shape, or form. I was learning how he had gone before me and where Abba had taken him on some things. Yeah.
That was our first conversation, and Brian despises talking on the phone. So for us to talk for 2 hours is incredible. But yeah, the crazy thing is, Mart-Marie, is Abba and I had how and I'm like, I trust you. If you want me to be alone, that's sweet. If you bring someone into my life, I have no idea how our lives are going to merge, because I am very comfortable being alone, reading when I want to, listening when I want to, watching movies if I want to, watching a movie 75 times if I want to. And so, I mean, that was just there in the background. But when Amy and I connected, and it was about, Chris and Justin Paul and those sort of things. So obviously, I'm knee deep in them because Chris was the gateway in January of that year and just started exposing me to all these people. I'm like, oh, this is the best ever, because I'm hearing this stuff from Abba and now someone else is confirming. I mean, that's how the relationship with Damon was. I mean, Abba would speak these things and then Damon would put it into words. And I'm like, yes. That's how I came across the mirror. Damon first exposed me to the Passion Translation. I was like, oh, heck no. I'm not getting the Passion Translation. That's watered down. That's not King James only. And then he started, teaching from the Mirror Word, and I was like, this is interesting. So anyway, yeah, it's really unique how Abba brought us together. But for me, when we started, it was absolute agape from the beginning. Other-centered, self-giving love. I was giving everything I am to her through our messaging, just because. So I loved her as a sister from the get-go, and I think that's the key. As we move further into our relationship, is I had no expectations. I mean, obviously she was beautiful, but I didn't realize that. Didn't really click till several months in. But it started with other-centered, self-giving love. I was just pouring myself and really receiving, because she has so much wisdom and just a wealth of experience. It was a beautiful thing, and still is, by the way.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so then when did the shift happen? What changed?
Give the little background on when I'm at the gym. Oh, well, okay. So I'm gonna say what we started to do. I'm an iPhone person. He's an Android person. So we are a blended family.
House divided.
Yeah. So we couldn't FaceTime, because like you'll talk on the phone a bit, message. Like he couldn't do voice recordings, things like that. So I'm like, how about if we do Marco Polo? And Marco Polo is an app, that you can video. And it's like video messaging. So then you can just say blah, 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 blah. And then he can reply when he has the time to do that.
Can I interrupt there? How often were you now communicating as friends
That's going to
at
be
this
part of
point?
this story. Yeah,
okay. All right. Go
So,
ahead.
our communication just started out like maybe a few times a week, but then really quickly, it was just, there was a lot spiritually happening. Like he had years of isolating, but yet the revelations that are there, the things we're hearing, the things we know, and I'm doing some of the same things. So we would be sharing that often. So, like I say, this foundation was spirit to spirit first. And for us, that was an absolute game changer, right? You know, a lot of relationships you get into the physical first. It's like, I'm attracted to this person. So then my soul is going to shine to make sure that there's this connection, you know, and we do that. And then hopefully there's a spiritual connection that transpires. Doesn't that seem like that's kind of the way of a lot of relationships? Not saying it's right or wrong. It's just we are experiencing what we did the other first. And throughout our, you know, times of dating, different things, that's how it is. And then we had this divine thing that came in first, and it has transformed so much for us. So we started talking once we got into Marco Polo, and you can do these short things or long things, man, 20 a day.
Minimum.
Yeah, like
Sometimes there was a whole lot more.
a whole lot more. We would, you know, be driving down the road and I'd be recording, saying something, and, you know, whether it was spiritual or then we start expressing just our soul more of who we are, our interests, our different things, talking about family, the good things, not the good things, whatever that we're walking through. And yeah. So then one day I'm in the gym at my apartment complex. He's Marco Polo'd, and I'm on the treadmill or something. And all of a sudden he says something about, well, if Abbas decides to take this relationship in a different direction, we'll deal with that as it comes. I stopped in my tracks. I was like, seriously, like, oh, hello, no. That's never going to happen. Like, how I was like deeply almost offended. Like, how dare he even mention that? Because I'm like, I'm not even dating. Like, I am not interested. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it just felt it was the right time to do that. You know, so I'm in Georgia, don't get really good cell phone service. The broadband or the, you know, fiber had gotten cut off through the non-payment. So in order for me to talk to her, I had to walk out my driveway and about 20 yards up the dirt road and to sit in one place, and then I could get enough signal to where I could, you know, listen to her polo and then respond back. And I had never done video chat before. I didn't do FaceTime. I didn't do all the things. And it's just like, here I am carrying on, you know, conversations. But so when it felt right to say, hey, if Abba leads this relationship in a different direction, we'll just take it day by day or step by step. But I dropped it because that wasn't the thing. The thing was the spirit connection. And if she didn't pick up the ball that I had tossed, then that's fine. I would still continue to love her as my sister because that's what it is. And it's interesting. And then one day she asked me a question. She's like, Brian, don't you have a question you're supposed to ask me? And I had been struggling with this for a couple of days.
Now, granted, let's do this. So that thing, it never got brought up. I never said anything about, I didn't respond to that. I just left it there, you know, because that's the good thing when it isn't live. He didn't have to see my response. He didn't have to see me go, no. But we just kind of responded to other parts of the conversation, but not that. Then a few months at least go by.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like probably at least 3 or 4 months later. That seed was planted in me, but I didn't even know that it needed to be planted. And then go.
Can I
Yeah.
and just jump in there? Brian, at that point, for you asking that question, was there something in your heart that felt like it needs to move in a direction, or was it just something that kind of blep out?
She had revealed her soul to me, Mart-Marie, and it was a beautiful soul. And I was like, all right, Abba, I mean, this is an amazing woman. And so, you know, this is, you know, so all I did was just open the door with no expectation, obviously a hope, but yeah, it just, her soul was what, so it started spirit, and obviously she has a beautiful spirit. But as she revealed her soul, I was like, oh my God, this is different. This is a whole nother other. And yeah, it was just needed to at least vocalize what I was feeling, and if nothing happened, then that's okay. There was no expectation.
And then a few months later.
Yeah. Where was I going?
Well, so it was in October,
That's right.
and I said,
So I had been, as we were getting to know each other, and then kind of talking more about our backstory and how we grew up and different things, there was really a disparity, a difference in the way that we were raised and the way that we had been living. So I was raised probably lower middle class in hindsight, didn't know it, but, and then through my marriage, it was probably lower middle class, if not lower. Whereas on her end, what I intuited or what she, kind of shared is upper middle class upbringing, marriage was upper middle class as well. And I had been wrestling with this. I was like, wow, such different lifestyles, upbringings, expectations. And that had been kind of ringing in my head, but I didn't want to ask it. And then out of the blue, she's like, Brian, is there a question that you've been asking Abba that you want to ask me? And I was like, oh, so I'm walking in barefoot on this dirt road right outside my driveway. I'm like, well, so I just asked her, I said, hey, yeah, this is what I've been thinking. And I forget how you responded, but you responded. So,
and, so at that point, things were happening so much in that spirit to spirit connection that started. That was moving beyond all of the norms and the societal expectations of what a healthy relationship, especially a second relationship, should be and look like. Like, you need to do all your due diligence. You need to make darn sure, if you're going to do this again, that this isn't, you're not going to have this roadblock and this roadblock and this roadblock. So everything on that level in the natural was telling us, telling me, run fast. Don't
yeah.
even think about this. This is not a good fit. But everything that was happening on that spirit to spirit level was deep. And so before I asked Brian that question, is there something, I had an experience one night, probably maybe a week before that or something, that I get up to use the restroom in the middle of the night. My phone's in the bathroom. And I just touch my screen to see what time it is. And the screen picture that opens up is like a butterfly, and it says, "Things end to begin again." And I just lost it. I cried because the spirit just said to me, this is who we have for you. Do you see that you get up in the middle of the night, you're thinking of him first? It's like, this is your person that we have for you.
I'm your person.
You're my person. But everything in my logical mind, which really is really good at painting a picture of what I want it to be, and then trying to manifest that, was telling me no. And it said, are you ready? You want a grand adventure for life. You want to be and do the things that you've just never taken the risk to do. This is who we have for you. It was so clear, Mart-Marie. It was like this gentle handing. This is who we have for you. And I didn't want it, but I did. It was like my heart was reconciling. Oh my gosh, I can relax and we can join. But everything out here was saying no, major no.
For real, no.
Yeah, I mean, he's told you a little bit about the things, the finances, the job, the, living in a small rural town, his interests in permaculture and regenerative agriculture and, doing different things. And I'm like the city girl, let's go over here and do this and but there's a ton of interweaving of the same. And so am I willing to release all of this construct I have built around myself to protect my heart, protect me, and create something that I really thought, with all this knowledge I have of the finished work and, Christological understandings here, are you willing to allow us to show and reveal you as he's like this beautiful mirror of that essence of me? And are you willing to do the work? And so that's where that question came in, where I asked him, is there something that you do want to ask me or say? And then that's when we started. We don't know what this is. We have no idea. You're in Georgia. I'm here. Neither of us have much income. I'm doing a little bit of side work with the counseling offices that I'm doing, breathwork, yoga, EFT, different creative healing arts. I'm doing that, but like contractual work, I'm trying to figure out how am I going to make a living? He's over here going, Abba's trying, going to reveal a way. We don't have anything that the world says we should have, but are we willing to join hands and step in? Like we weren't like talking that serious yet, but are we willing to go to the next step? Like, do you want to come visit? Because we talk all the time. And then so we stepped into our first, so that's in the end of October. He comes out in December. I had had all these family things going on and baby showers and early, family gatherings that happened in early December. So my Christmas was pretty open. His Christmas was open. And he came to visit for 3 weeks the first time we met. First time we met.
The longest date in history.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yes. Best first date in history, too.
Yeah.
And then,
so tell,
and
tell
so
me
to
about
kind
those
of
3 weeks.
Yeah, those 3 weeks were incredible.
We were isolated, like in our own little cocoon.
We were. And and I do, like I know a lot of people around in my community. Everywhere we went, it was like I saw no one. We thought was so interesting. Like everything was just him and I and the Trinity. Like melding, healing. We talked, Brian and I both. So we do a little podcast on our own called A Wild Ride, The Winds of Change with Brian and Amy on my YouTube channel. And the first episode, we dive right into, is this like marriage doomed from the beginning? Because both Brian and I have a background of infidelity. And so that was an element of my marriage, but 20 years before we divorced, or 15 years before we divorced. And that thing was something that we worked through, or did we, right? At the core. But something that Brian and I talked about, like coming into a relationship where both of us have that. And so if you allow those kind of things, whether you are the one who stepped out or you're the one who was on the receiving end of that, if fear
Mhm.
remains of distrust and like putting a religious facade over that and saying, I forgive, but you don't deal with the root issues, that will come back. So we're like, we both know that the Holy Spirit has eradicated that. Like that is not a thing in either of us. You look at those reasons, you look at that stuff, but that's not it. Because, I mean, can you imagine if two people who strayed married together, like every time you walk out the door, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
But it's not a thing because we talked about that and we sit with the Spirit and purity of your past, purifying, literally allowing what Christ did to come into every fiber of our being and start anew. So it's been incredible.
One thing, I don't know, a week or so before I came to Houston that first time, Abba had whispered to me about redeeming the innocence of my sexuality, physicality, purity, and then Amy, I think, had mentioned it maybe a day or two later that he had whispered the same thing. So it's like when we meet, it's like two brand new innocent babies are meeting together for the first time, and it was just the physical manifestation, the evidence. It was incredible, just to see how they were able to confirm what they had ministered, whispered to us both individually.
Mm,
It was really powerful.
so good.
Wow. I almost feel like there's 2 questions. I think the one is, Do you feel like the safety to be in a space where you can share that so deeply when you met was built because of the friendship before? But then also the other question is, I think sometimes we are so afraid to break through those things. How did you break through that?
Go ahead.
Well, as I hear you, very true. We're afraid, key word, right? We're afraid of that because then all of a sudden we put that pressure on us. And you know what, Mart-Marie, this was a divine thing. There was no efforting. This was just literally allowing, like, for me, that moment I had getting up in the middle of the night and touching my phone and the spirit saying, "This is who we have," has put something so deep in me that I can't create that. I go back to that. We haven't even gotten into how insane our life has been since we got married. Like, we have been put through the fire from day one, where literally we've even had moments like, did we make a mistake? In just 6 months, but we get to come back to those anchors to go, no, this isn't about what we're doing. We literally can't do this in our own strength.
Mm-mm.
And so that afraid to tread on a topic such as that, where we would rather dance around it and just hope that that goes away, will often come back and bite people. Because when fear is I think of, if you ever used to listen to like Bethel or Chris Valentin, fear is faith in the wrong kingdom. Fear is, there's a kingdom at work there, and we can step into that one. Been there, done that. Many a years, don't want to go back. Still have moments I'll step into that. And so I recognize it. But we just went in. We just were like, the Spirit said this. Let's talk about it. Like, and I will say, having been only divorced for a few years, I don't want to go back down that path ever again. Never want to. The pain, the loss, the impact, the ripple effect, even in when you lovingly part, it wasn't part of the plan. It's not the intention. Abba knows the pain that it causes. And so when we're going to deal with this infidelity issue, we're going to talk about the hard things and make that commitment to one another so that we don't head down the same path. Because clearly I was not fully healed. I'm still not. Brian said something to me early, when we were just starting, before we met face to face, but we would hop on Zoom. And I'm like, I want in my mind to be healed before I step into like, I had in my mind what I need to be like. And he's like, what if that wasn't his intention? What if I'm part of being with you and walking with you through every phase of your healing? Through every rendition of Amy, when Amy's a crying mess with snotty nose on the floor because of a lack, a pain, a loss of something. And that he knows, and his confidence is in Yeshua saying who he is, not me, so that I can talk about my former spouse and the pain of some of that, and him not feel threatened by that, and to be able to be like, I'm just your friend first. I am that friend first. And that our marriage doesn't need to look like what we think some fairy tale marriage needs to look like. We're two people walking life out. And right now, for whatever reason, I have gone through some really intense things since we've been married, like crazy. They knew you cannot be alone right now. I think I didn't know that, but it was like, Amy, you need somebody with skin on next to you. And I mean, I had so many incredible encounters when I was alone, and I would just be like, where your body shakes, you cry so hard when you feel alone after 33 years. And I would feel the presence, just like spooned and held in love. But right now, Amy, you're moving into something, and Brian gets to be the representation of us for you. That's a lot. That's not like putting that on his shoulders, but it's something that divinely came together, you know?
Absolutely. When you mentioned safety, Mart-Marie, so, you know, April of 24, supernaturally, I was allowed to go see Chris in Oklahoma. It's actually how I met John and Casey and Amy Melrose and, really started my journey. But this chick here was the catalyst for that supernatural provision. But the first opening night of that conference, one of the speakers, just got up and in the spirit mentioned, hey, someone's dealing with abandonment issues, and I just broke, because I was abandoned by my mom when I was 6. Didn't see her again until I was like 23. But anyway, so I was like, oh, sweet, that's healed. But yet, while I'm there the first visit in December of last year, I'm sitting on the living room floor, she's in a chair. And I just remembering that hurt of abandonment as a little boy. And I'm like, what in the hell is this? Now, I thought it was done. I thought it was healed. And Abba whispered, he's like, no, now that your heart is safe with Amy, I can reveal these things to you and heal them completely. So there's no scarring, there's no anything. So I think it's so important what you brought up about being safe in a relationship with a significant other. And let's hold that thought, because I think we're going to go back to how you wanted to kind of wrap things up. But I came into this thinking I was God's man of power for the hour, right? I'd been in isolation for 24 months, done all the healings, had this absolute faith, rest, trust thing going, intimacy, communion, so I was like, yeah, I'll go in and take care of things. And here I am, a weeping baby on her living room floor. But it's so important. So, yeah, and I'd like to kinda come back, and you could take it where you want to, Mart-Marie, but what we were talking about last night, around the dinner table is there's something about the feminine and masculine of God, of Abba. Chris has been talking about it for a little over a year, I guess, and as John and I were talking while the girls did their spa evening,
Beautiful.
mani-pedi night and stuff. It was just the guys around the house, and John was just, talking about a few things. And what really hit me is she and I together are the absolute perfect representation of the masculine and feminine of Abba, of the Trinity, and it has nothing to do with gender. There are times where me being the strong one would come home from working on the RV shredded. Nothing went right. Everything I set my hand to was like it would blow up. So I broke, I was weeping, and she's speaking life over me. And she's like, you're sufficient for all these things. Not saying me, but Trinity in me with their wisdom will, and I'm like, don't feel it. So here I am breaking, and me expressing that feminine side, her expressing the masculine strength, encouragement was just so powerful. And it's just, I think that's the deal. I think that is what he's looking for, and that is what he is grooming. I don't know the right word, but for us to be out there, I'm not saying it has to be in marriage, but I think it's important. So take that for what you will, but it really struck me last night.
I'm
And
so
then,
happy. Yeah, I'm,
go
I'm
ahead.
so happy you brought it up, because it's kind of, I didn't know how to introduce the masculine, feminine to this conversation. So thank you for bringing it up. But would you mind just maybe stepping a little bit into your understanding of what does those roles look like in God? And then how is that, you said earlier, mirroring you beautiful, Amy, you said that is a beautiful mirror to you. And I feel like masculine and feminine is mirroring each other. How do we bring that together?
I will defer to my beautiful bride on that answer.
Well, so one thing as we were having a little bit of this conversation last night, what has happened for me in this relationship is a safety to reveal my feminine as I feel like our culture often with women has pushed the masculine of rise, be the tough, be all of these things in order to be successful, be this, da 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 da. And to me, there can be a beautiful dance of both. And so I think what Brian was explaining was like last week. So to kind of backstory on here, we're renovating an RV right now. We are no longer in the apartment. We are literally living with some friends right now and have been for over a month. As we've had delays in this, we bought a 2011 motor coach that we have major is not a proper word renovation and having to rehab.
Yes.
So it's literally like building a house and building a car at the same time. And Brian has so many skills that he can do the electrical, do all of these things, create, build, literally tore off half the roof and rebuilding it. But yet, like never having done it before, it's a lot of, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. And it's literally months delay. Okay. So dealing with that, and those pressures, him coming in the other day and feeling just beaten down, like nothing went right. It's another delay. Me just naturally going into, I could beat him down too, which I've had moments I probably have done. Or I can step into that, let me build you up. Let me show what the Father says about you. Let me remind who you are when we forget. And do it from a feminine way with touch, with the tone, with doing those things. Not intentionally, I'm looking back, right? That is something that his masculine nature needs, especially when his feminine characteristics are coming to the surface through tears and vulnerability, which a woman in our tenderness, in our natural tendency to use far more words than what a man feels necessary sometimes, or whatever, that we can balance that, right? In this dance of the feminine, the masculine showing up. And so when my masculine needs to rise because his feminine came, but yet doing it and blending that with the other, I think honoring of all of those attributes of the Trinity. And so when people have stepped in, which there's usually like this little bridge we cross over to even look at Holy Spirit as the feminine, as the, you know, El Shaddai, the breasted one, these components that make up us, the waters of our being are dancing with all these aspects of masculine, feminine, and in the kingdom, there is no male nor female kind of elements that we embody all of that. And in marriage, if we look at culturally, we need, we stay in one component. When we were talking here, literally like with Casey and John here about like maybe one might have a much stronger tendency in the more what we would consider to be masculine, and the other stepping into a role that might feel more feminine or whatever. But to me, if we are grounded in who we are and stay rooted in that, that doesn't have to define anything. And we get to really play around with these roles. You get to,
Absolutely.
I love it that he makes me feel safe in my feminine when the tears come or a lot of words are used or a lot of emotional expression, because that kind of is. But I used to feel that that wasn't okay. Like I needed to put a lid on that and be more level. I have a lot of estrogen and other things that are flowing through that are going to bring that out. And why not cherish and honor that? If he does and mirrors it and says, I love that about you, and you give me permission to step into my own in that at the right time rather than put a lid on it.
So for me, Mart-Marie, I think Chris probably explains it better.
Then me?
No, than what I'm trying to. No, because usually you're able to really clearly illustrate kind of what Chris is teaching was on it. But I think that the feminine is, the emotive, the now piece. This is what we need now, whereas sometimes the masculine is, big picture, strategic planning type things, physical safety, and all the things. So that's kind of how I understand it to my very limited mm, ability to vocalize it, but I am experiencing it in our relationship for sure. Things that I haven't been able to experience before because of the safety. And truly, I think because I've provided a safe place for Amy, she is able to express the masculine feminine or however you want to look at it. But it's a beautiful synergy. It's a beautiful, I mean, I am so honored to be on this journey with her as she heals, as we heal. Stuff that I didn't realize was still there gets bubbled up too. So yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to journey with her on this thing. I mean, it's amazing.
Amy, you said in the beginning when you got divorced, before all of this kind of started, you were like, Amy needs to find Amy. Is Amy finding Amy in this marriage?
Oh, that's a good question.
Wow.
I am. It's taking longer than I like. Brian creates the space for me to do that. And I find myself wanting to be the person he was when let me say that better. I find myself wanting to go back to the person I was when he met me, because that's who he met. But then when we just, that's the soul, that's the body part, those elements, the spirit is the same. And even a lot of the soul is literally, like last night, I was saying this to him, like there's so much that I'm not even, there's no point in getting into, that is happening in my life, in all this outer part, that is undoing me. And it's no mistake, right? I know all of this timing is divine. Yet, you want to save face. You want to stand up like, I've got it. I've made it. And sometimes I'm just like, you can feel as if that depression, and I struggled with depression for many years. I was on medication for 18 years. And then when I went through breast cancer in 2010 and chemo, I was bald, I went through all the things. I literally went off medication then at one of my lowest points and never went back. But my walk has been continual in that place of what is renewing the mind of Christ? What is that walking in that space where my thoughts keep me in an elevated place rather than where I've been in historically? And I can feel some of that come back in this season. But sometimes we have to go beneath those to come to Amy finding Amy, you know, is a mourning process. There's loss. There's been lots of grief in the last 6 months. And then on top of that, leaving a life that I've been accustomed to. But, something you just said, and I'm kind of skirting around your question, I realize, but I think I get to the heart of it. Brian's saying creating a safety for Amy, but yet it's a different safety. So in the natural, everything that
Yeah.
Amy would see before, safety would mean 5,000 square foot home, new car, your secure job, your retirement plan, our medical coverage, that we got all the bells and whistles and we've got at least 2 vacations a year. That's safety by the world standards. He's providing a safety that doesn't feel safe. Does that make sense?
Completely, more than you know. And
So,
it's hard and it's hard and it's difficult to grieve the worldly things,
mm,
especially if you shift into a new season, into a new being, into a new it's hard, and
mhm.
it is amazing to be able to be a couple in doing that together and being there where growing into this new season, because that's essentially what you guys are doing, is growing together into this new oneness and seeing what it looks like. But there is letting go of some of the old stuff.
Yeah. In some moments we do that better than others. And then, literally, if, like the book by Bessel van der Kolk, Body Keeps the Score, the body, the physicality will lock down and start to all of a sudden go, what are you doing? What are we shedding? We're shedding old thought patterns. We're shedding old beliefs. We're shedding old, you know, uh, ties to money, places, people, things, religious constructs. And yes, I'm using the word religious intentionally, um, and then just feeling like I'm standing there, Amy finding Amy naked and alone, but not alone, and you're just like, who is she? And then he reveals those things. So I could have told you 10 years ago, doing ministry and nonprofits and writing and store and all of these things, that I knew Amy. But there was that version, that Christian ministry, do all the right things, say all the right things, make sure everybody feels all the good, fluffy, warm feelings version of Amy. Brian's done the same in other things at other times, right? And so we go through these at different times. And you can go, I should, I should, I should,
Mhm.
and should all over yourself versus be, closer to 60 and sit there and go, this is the time.
Hmm.
And what does that look like for each person as we maybe experience our own isolation seasons, different ways that the Trinity shows you, I've never left you alone. I've been with you through all of this. The looking back, we're doing Revelation in the mirror right now, and in Revelation 1, just spending the study on that word of John heard the voice behind him and turned to see what he heard, and then referring to Abraham, as he had Isaac on the altar and waiting for some sacrifice, and turn and the ram behind him. And what's the behind? It's the looking back, the reflection, the seeing of what has been, always has been there, but now is being revealed in a new and fresh way. And so this, the looking back and going, he's never left me. He's never left Brian. He's never left you. Whether a relationship forms and comes into your life, manifests physically, or remains in the world's term as single or alone, or through friendships and through workplace or through whatever, where the relationships come in to provide what's needed. Yeah, it's a marriage with the Trinity, it's a marriage with self, it's a marriage with another. I don't know, it's so unique to our walk. That's the thing that I realize more than anything. Like, I used to have to hear people, their stories, their experiences, what they're learning, and then I want to emulate that. And he's like, I so uniquely love you, Amy, you, Brian, you, Mart-Marie. I'm going to walk you through exactly what we have for you. In some ways, I was kind of like, well, dang. They're like, girl, you can't handle this alone. You ain't gotta where some people are like, they can't, but they knew me more than I knew myself. I was
Hmm.
sure I love independence, and I did a pretty darn good job.
Mhm.
But was it that I had to prove to myself that I could do it? And I really inside they're like, no, no, not you. Just kidding.
One thing that's coming up as we're talking about this, and you know, one thing I cherish about Amy is her strong independence, or dependence on Trinity. And me coming into her life, I didn't want that to be changed to support her independence. But as we go through this unveiling, if you will, this refining, whatever you want to call it, not that we're achieving or striving or changing per se, we're just becoming aware. But in this becoming aware, there are contradictions. And as we experience this, like, here I am, pile of crap again because X, because I'm not providing safety, or because, I failed this today or whatever, to not put our head in the sand and start reciting our mantra that I am above and, above only and not beneath. I am his beloved son. I am ascended, glorified, righteous, living from heaven in the hundredfold, looking down. Feel the crap, feel the emotion without changing your truth that but allow it to pass through you. Don't repress it. Don't try to hide from it, because otherwise it's just going to bubble up again at another time. So that's something that for me, for sure, I'm learning or becoming aware of, and just trusting the process, if you will, just to feel the emotions, but go back to the truth, of who we are, and back into the rest and peace and love and joy.
As Brian finds more of Brian.
Yep.
Yep. Finding Brian. Oh my word. Tell me about how you moved from December to marriage in 6 months.
So the flight home in January was bittersweet. No plans, no real understanding other than this is something different. I felt that this was the real deal, but didn't understand the logistics, how it was going to work, what was going to happen. I had nothing. So just trying to navigate that. So it was unique, in that perspective. Um, yeah.
So when we had that first visit, like he's talking about, that flight home from that 3-week visit, so Brian and I both are 58. It's like, you're not just like, okay, well, that was great, but I think maybe now I'll start dating, I'll open that up, and just like, now I got a taste of that understanding and see, what's out there. Cause I mean, I knew from that visit, even though everything in the natural is saying no, I knew that it's like, nope, there won't be anything else. This is the person. I don't understand, like he said, I don't understand it. We don't know what that's going to look like. We kind of talked that way, but not really. Like we knew, but we just needed to let all of this simmer. But, as we continued the Marco Polos and the Zoom calls and phone calls, we then did kind of talk. No, then it was through the conversations. We knew this was going to be permanent. So the next time, I mean, you did, even we talked about weddings, we talked about those things. So the conversations just started coming and getting comfortable. And then we reconnected in April. He came back out and he proposed at that time at a little local pub, like this little, like way back out, like it's called Backwoods Saloon, literally, with an alligator in the pond below us.
A biker bar.
Biker bar. So it was a biker bar. And he and wasn't planning on doing it then, but he got the whisper that he should grab the ring. Now, what we did, again, we're talking, he had the silicone band, and I knew that. I knew we weren't doing diamonds. We were going to do things very different. And he proposed then. He felt like we were literally getting ready to just go there for catfish night. And they were having a catfish night. And we're like, let's go to this place. We'd been there one time before. And he proposed. Then that visit, he was again he was staying for a month and a half then. You stayed for quite a while. Let's
Came
get
out here
married
too.
soon. Like, let's get married soon. Yes, that's when we met you. So that was between we had gotten engaged. Then we came here for the 10-day conference with everybody. And we were on cloud nine. We were like, had decided we're not going to wait a long time because everything, just so many unknowns. And we got engaged in April. We got married June 14th. So it was a quick wedding. We were going to, we decided we were going to do it with a friend, Rachel Cannon, who's a dear friend through the Mirror Word. She would marry us on the beach at Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. And we weren't really sure if we were going to have anybody.
We weren't.
We kind of thought it would be the three of us. And we would just get away for a quick, little trip. And then we started having friends, a few close friends. For the first people to say they wanted to be there were the couple that we're staying with, some South African friends of ours that live in Houston. And they're like, well, we want to be there. We had dinner with them, and they just when we told them we were getting married in Florida, they're like, well, we want to be there. And and I'm like, I don't know that we want you there. Because that's the kind of friendship we have, and I have to think about that. And they're like, okay. And so then what we realized were the people that were supposed to be there were the people that were inviting themselves.
Yes.
So Casey and John, like, for example, they're like, well, we want to be there. Karan was like,
Cool.
I want to be there. My daughter, I'm going to be there. Like things like that were starting to happen. Another friend, I'd like to come. So that's what we did. We
Oh,
literally
that's so
just had a
precious.
dozen people that said they wanted to be there. And, literally like my bouquet, it's beautiful. Everything we did really, whoops, that's not going to work. I grabbed flowers at the grocery store in Florida. They just so happened to have a bunch for like $10 of beautiful off-white flowers, had the stems. I had a ribbon in my bag. I mean, it looked like I paid $150 for it. But that's how everything came together. We did barefoot on the beach, white linen, and it was amazing. And then we spent a couple of days in Florida on our own. And then after that weekend, we went our own ways again. He needed to go back to Georgia. I went to do things in Texas. And we literally like said goodbye in a parking lot. We each had our car. That was tough to be like, okay, we don't even know. We're married now and we don't know when we're going to see each other again. And that's where I realized, if you're familiar at all with the self-coaching model, the pain comes from the thoughts we have about a situation, not from the situation itself, right? And so, for example, somebody gets beaten up in a dark alley. Yes, you have healing, there's trauma, but when people have continued trauma comes from the story they tell themselves. I'm not safe. It's not safe to go out after dark or whatever. I'm incapable of defending myself. I'm vulnerable, or whatever. And so that was kind of, that's something I have to do continuously in my life that keeps me out of depression is when I'm like, what story am I telling myself about this? If we make a story about people going, you can't get married and go your own way. What is that about? What's wrong with it? Or this is the journey we're on. We are starting the adventure today of unknown and letting the spirit guide where we're going. And so it wasn't easy. And then we went from there, and from that point, we were apart a month and a half. And then, making decisions. There were a lot of things then that started a lot of hard unfolding and moving into deciding the RV, going to Georgia, getting the RV, all kinds of things.
Which was not on our radar at all.
No.
The beautiful thing about being with Amy is that she'll voice the uncomfortable conversations. So as we were leaving, she's like, Brian, this isn't right. We shouldn't be apart after just getting married and different things. And because I'm strong silent type, I'm really comfortable owning that position. And so, with her in my life, I'm exploring the more communicative styles and different things, and talking about the difficult thing, which there's still, I don't want to say work, but there's still some conversations happening, some changes, being aware of that side of me that Amy needs, and it really helps our relationship. So yeah, she's a treasure.
So where are you guys based now? Well, at the moment you're in San Diego, but where's the RV?
It's in Houston. It's at a friend of ours' farm,
Okay.
and so we every day, 7 days a week, we get up in the morning and drive out to the farm and spend the day working on the RV, and then come back, eat dinner with our friends, go to bed, rinse and repeat. It's been it's interesting. So yeah, where it's a suburb north of Houston.
Okay, so you moved to Houston.
Well, that's where the apartment was, and we
Yeah.
just luckily Amy had some friends who's now my friends as well. So we were able to park the RV there. Her name's Mary, um, and park Mary there and work on her every day, and she's safe, and it's yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, thank you for that. I think my last question to you is anybody listening to this conversation who feels like, nah, this is not going to happen again. I don't deserve a second chance. I am disqualified because of infidelity or whatever the reason might be, or I'm just not good enough or pretty enough or whatever enough, too old, too this, too that, because we make up all these excuses, you know. What would your message be to somebody who's feeling like this can't be my story. I can't have something similar to this.
Mhm. Want me to go first?
Mhm.
The first thing that just now popped in my head is Graham Cook saying, "What you focus on, you empower." And so if I focus on all the things I can't, what all my disqualifiers are, we literally put our energy into that to bring that to fruition. So if I am living in this place of I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm my whether you mention physical things, whether it's past behavioral based things, age falling into the physical, then that is literally energetically something we carry with us. And so people pick up on that and they'll be like, she doesn't think she's worthy, so why should I? Or he doesn't feel young enough, so why should I think he is? And so that I think there's that factor. And, some people will say, oh, you're blending science and faith. Well, yeah, he's the creator of amazing science and these things. And there's so much that we're learning in that realm, on that whole area. Call it quantum physics, call it all of that. So we carry the frequency in which we behold in our subconscious selves as well. So there's that element. But if my focus, so for Brian and I, if you guys caught, neither of us had this as our priority. This was not on our radar. And I think you can connect that back to energetic frequency because our frequency was to walk in the cool of the day with our creator. Both of us, that was our focus. And so in that space, I don't know, like what's coming to my mind is, I mean, that's what he wants, right? That song, He is Jealous for You. And I mean that in the most endearing way. And that's the way I choose to take those lyrics. Is he's like, because I know when I have your heart first, the other things fall into place. And so not to make that like striving to put
Mhm.
God first, it just is. And so from that place of rest, and I wouldn't say I was in a lot of rest in that time, though. I just knew that I needed them. My heart knew it, and I was following the longing of my heart. And it wasn't for a man to make my life okay. I was so not wanting that. I needed to be okay with Amy. Now, did I get that fully before a man came in? No. But I had them there in my own unique dance with them that way. And I think that shifts things maybe in my understanding.
So for me, Mart-Marie, when you ask that question, I just, she referenced it, but go back to Abram and Sarai, or Abraham and Sarah. You know, Abraham is accounted the father of faith, even though he did do some things that were not very faithful. Went with Hagar and all the things. But one thing that Damon really helped me with is that Abraham continued to chase Sarah around the bed. He had the promise, so he continued. He continued to chase Sarah around the bed, and that's the thing. So I'm not saying that listen for Abba to whisper that, hey, you're going to get this and it's going to come, but just enjoy the intimacy and communion with him or with them, however they represent themselves to you. Become infatuated with them. And then if that is the desire of the heart, because the thing is, if it's the desire of your heart, guess who put it there? And he's faithful to complete that. So continue the dance with them, with Trinity, with Holy Spirit, with Yeshua, however they manifest to you, and let that be your focus. Let that be the be all end all, because what you behold, you become, and everything else will fall into place. He's a good father, and he wants good things for us. So not to consider yourself disqualified, because Abram and Sarah were well past the day of childbearing, yet they had the child of happiness. And the same Abba is still alive today and is still within inside of us and is us. So yeah, just keep the biblical hope, right? It's a confident assurance and a well beneficial outcome.
Keep the biblical hope. That is so beautiful. Oh, wow. Thank you. All right. So let's wrap this up. If you two newlyweds,
I like that.
uh, what are you excited about for the journey ahead?
Wow.
You know, when Brian and I, before we were married, we had like, oh my gosh, we're going to do this and this. We've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, the things that God's got for you guys, that's incredible. And, it feels really good to hear those things, but it has to be internalized, right? Like we know that. Thanks for the affirmation, but we know that not coming from the outside, but inside out. And then with so many things in the past 6 months coming against that, you can just start to feel like heavy. And so we've been talking about that, like reawakening that. And yeah, just in 6 months, but I'm telling you, we've been smacked left, right, up, down, bonked on the head, and you get a little weary. I'm excited about the dreaming together. We have each other to dream verbally together. As individuals, as Amy, as Brian, the things you want to experience, maybe do, I don't mean it in a doing, but the natural outflow of who you are in this earth. And then, that the more we do talk it, the more we experience, like dream again. I'm so excited about dreaming again. It was something I felt like in my life that got stifled a lot. Like logic really needed to be at the front and center. And that childlikeness, like I am very childlike. And so like I just like waking keep him really childlike and play, playfulness in amazing things unfolding in this simple state of rest and being and playfulness and owning it. Like owning that I don't do like a lot of people do. I'm not one of huge scriptural reference or these, specific things. I'm just Amy. and being okay with Amy. So letting that unfold in this whole new season, that's what I'm excited about. And inviting others to come along, giving people permission to be who they're created to be, and owning my own unique expression even more so, as he mirrors that for me. He sees that and he values it, and so shows me that, oh, maybe other people do too, you know? So that's what I look forward to.
That's beautiful. I don't know how to follow that. So for me, I have this vision for 16, 17 years of regenerative agriculture, community, helping people, that sort of thing. And, that's, I still want that, still desire it. But I think what I'm looking forward to is being on the road, maybe waking up in the desert and seeing a sunrise and having coffee with my bride and dancing and, just by ourselves, maybe with our own music, maybe with no music, experiencing creation, redeeming creation by our presence as, mature sons, and just being the light in creation and bringing about the redemption. Even though it's already happened, the redemption is manifesting as we are out walking about. I think that's what I'm looking forward to right now. There's just so much doing. Get up, go to the art. I feel like the Dunkin' Donuts guy from way back in the 80s. Time to make the donuts. Get up, go to the RV, work on the RV, go home, eat, go to bed, rinse and repeat. I'm ready just for spontaneity. And don't get me wrong, spontaneity happens. I mean, we went to Denny's and overheard some conversations, and I go up to the table and start talking. They're like, "Hey, tell us about it." And it's just like, and talking about this truth that we know, that we are experiencing, that we've incarnated within us. So it happens frequently. Yet, yeah, I want to be cautious not to say that I'm waiting, but that's what I'm anticipating and really looking forward to, is just going and being, even though that's a whole nother other adventure, if you will. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, and to just kind of piggyback on that, like when you say that, Marie, like Brian and I, what I just noticed in both our response, we didn't go into all the dreams, that ideas that we have had. Literally, like there is so much we could say, a whole nother episode on the regenerative agriculture and the animals and the community and a creative space for people to come. And for me, like retreats, and where literally I do healing arts, and I do the creative things, and I do the body things, and I love to pour into people that way. And food, we love to, healthy ways that we can be creative with food, with people, and creating that space. It's there, but in 6 months of being married, nothing that we have put out there that we've said, God, this is where we're going. This is the direction. Do you bless this? He is like, bam. So and it's not like gun shy. We're growing in the unknown. Like we have desires, and we know that he's a good father that wants to give us the desires of our heart. But if he's saying there's things that this changes, and it also gives other people permission to change, to walk into a marriage and go, you know what? Literally, the crap can hit the fan the moment you say I do, and it doesn't look anything like you thought it would, but love will remain, and you can grow with another human being, and it doesn't have to meet a visual expectation of what marriage should be, and then you walk away because it's hard, uncomfortable, difficult, messy, or all the things. But that there is this reviving of the human heart and how it connects in the marriage union. And that's our walk with him as bride and groom too. Like, let's just walk together. Let's do this together. Let's come in our own uniqueness, in the messiness, in the really crappy decisions, or maybe even bad parenting, or no parenting, no whatever, like all of these things, and we can still walk forward together with our groom and as a bride. And maybe you don't know where it's going to take you, but you're together, you're growing, you're stepping into who you are. You are that mirror image. You are this face to face with perfection, and it's bringing it out in you. It's like, this is who you've always been. Come into that place and be okay in your own skin. Yeah.
So if I can kind of piggyback, I apologize for continuing. But
No, please
Abba
do.
had given me the vision, the dream of regenerative agriculture for, like I said, 16, 17 years, aquaponics, heritage breed animals, heirloom vegetables, going back to the simpler times, management intensive, rotational grazing, multi-species. And as Amy and I were talking, she's like, Brian, one thing I don't want is me coming into your life and changing this vision, because she had no interest, didn't really know a lot of what I was saying, had no clue. And, so she didn't want her impact to change my desire, change my vision. And one thing that I shared, and it's actually coming to fruition now, is that the thing is, it's still there, it's still a desire. Yet if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. It's the fact that he is my beloved father, and he has gifted me with my beloved wife, and where we go together is going to be amazing. Even if this thing that he has kept me on for 16, 17 years, giving me hope, growing it exponentially to expand it, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be okay. And, and so, yeah, I'm part of this, particularly with Amy, is he has reignited the child within me, the artist, the player, the dancer that I never really believed in. I sing to my wife. I don't sing to people. I make a joyful noise. And it's all the things that I never knew that I am or that I wanted. He's just birthing within me, within us, and it's all good. Even in the midst of this chaos, it's just, John and I were looking out the kitchen window this morning. I'm like, dude, are we dreaming? Just this magnificent sunrise and having coffee, and, our brides are in different rooms getting ready for the day. And it's just, what did we do to deserve this life? We have such a good dad. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for creating a space for us to verbalize and get to even reawaken some of the things, where we've been so focused on making donuts in the morning.
Yeah, it was
Per se.
beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And
Well,
just
thank
to
you.
close, sometimes when we're able to go back through and re-talk, revoice all of the things that we've known, it cements it even more. It just like, yeah, it refines it. And now it's just like shining. I mean, I was sitting here and I had a light beam from the sun on my chest, just, firing up my heart, and I'm going, thank you, Abba. So thank you, Mart-Marie, for providing this and stimulating this conversation. It's been more of a blessing than you know.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your tremendous vulnerability and just opening up in such a deep, deep way. I want to bless you, but I almost don't want to bless you. I just want to. I'm afraid that I might taint the blessing that's already there,
No,
and
you
like,
can't do that.
Lord,
Mhm.
it's like, God, all that I'm hearing is this is a supernatural union. And this is a supernatural union. And thank you that I can be a witness to that. And thank you for everybody else that can be a witness to that. And like you said earlier, there's an energy that just flows, and a love and a radiance that just flows from the two of you together. So I just want to honor you two for the journey that you're on. And I want to honor you for doing the work. That might be the RV, but it might also just be pushing through the natural stuff and holding on to the spiritual stuff. And thank you for reminding me about the spiritual stuff. So I really enjoyed having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.